Welcome to the Write Your Own Story podcast. I'm your host, Betsy Leonidas, and the founder of the Write Your Own Story company. Girl, I can tell you right now, you are definitely enough. Here we value service, sisterhood, connection, laughter, and that super genuine, keep it real, tell you like it is honesty. My hope is at the end of each episode, you realize you can do whatever it is you dream about and that you are not alone with what you struggle with. I'm hoping that you are snapping and clapping and hell yes in your way through each one of these episodes. So if this tracks with you, let's get started. I'm so glad you're here. All right, everyone. Welcome back to the latest episode of the Write Your Own Story podcast. I'm your host, Betsy Leonidas, and I am so excited to be here with an author and a really interesting woman, Jeanne Blasberg. Jeanne, thank you so much for being here.
Betsy, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So one of the reasons that I was really excited to interview you was when I learned about you is that you write really strong female characters in your books, and you're all about sort of helping them channel their main character energy and identity. So what I really, and I think that this is so important for women to think about and reflect on in their own life. We take care of so many other people in our lives that like sometimes we just need to do a stop and a check-in and be like, wait, are we living as our own main characters of our own lives? So I like to start off every episode with a promise or an intention of the episode, and is absolutely to inspire women to channel that main character energy, which I think everyone is going to be doing at the end of this.
I hope so.
Oh yeah, here we go. So before we dive into questions, would you mind just giving a quick bio? Tell everyone about yourself.
Sure. Let's see. I'm 58 years old. I am the mom of 3 not so young children, late 20s, early 30s. I am an author of 3 novels. And I am also an athlete, and I like to just bring that up because I do think the experience of winning and losing and competing has added a lot to my personality and my approach to things. I am currently leading an effort on a regenerative farm in southwestern Wisconsin. And that's where I'm talking to you from today, is our farm in Wisconsin, as we're deep into the growing season. And yeah, that's kind of who I am right now in 2024.
I love that. That is so multifaceted. We're starting with the athlete part. Tell me about your athlete self.
So in college, I was a 3-sport athlete. I was field hockey, lacrosse, and squash. And I think the most important thing about my team sport experience is that I was the captains of my team, and I kind of grew up with sports being an opportunity for leadership, but also an opportunity for just like expression. And then after college, and well, many years after, I became a Masters squash champion, and I play nationally and internationally and have won some titles in the US in my age group.
That is
I
so
continue to
badass
train for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're still actively playing squash as well?
You know what? At my age, I'm 58. My next big push is going to be for the 60 plus. So
awesome.
Part of that is staying injury free. So it's really training and playing smart and not all the time. I used to play all the time. The other thing with regard to squash, I was the first female chair of US Squash, which is the governing body in the United States for the sport. So I've been a player as well as a administrator and leader and cheerleader for the sport. So
that's amazing. I'm in Cincinnati, and squash is like big here. And yeah.
My husband and I lived in Cincinnati between 1989 and 1994, and I was so involved with the Cincinnati Squash Rackets Association. Charlie Johnson became one of our closest friends, and it was really a wonderful way to meet people, besides like the people from our jobs who were kind of transient young people in and out. We really felt part of the community through our squash friends in Cincinnati. We have such fond memories.
That is amazing. Cincinnati has a way connecting people. Look at us. I play tennis, and I didn't play it until I was an athlete as well, and didn't play it until I was an adult, till after I was done having kids. And I'm in the phase where I play it all the time and probably being too hard on my body. I also did not grow up playing.
You got to do that. You know, the other reason I kind of mentioned that I'm an athlete, it's not only has it informed my ability to kind of take risks and be a little bit not afraid, it has also driven my desire for longevity, which has driven part of our desire to be on this farm and kind of try something new with regard to healthy food and access to healthy eating. but we'll get into that, I'm sure.
Yes, we will. That is amazing. I have like a million questions, like papillon, papillon, but I'm going to try and pace myself because I'm just excited. I think that's amazing. And there's so many people in my community. And, you know, Cincinnati is like a small, big town, and playing tennis has truly been like such a great way. Like you said, it's social, it lets you still be that athletic self that it still is. So I can tell you, I'm speaking directly to all the listeners who are like, I want to play, but I know I'm like, just do it. Just do it. It fills so many buckets, don't you think? Playing a
Yeah,
sport.
yeah, it does. There's the sweating, but there's
Mm-hmm.
also the friendly rivalries and
Mm-hmm.
then the friends you make. You know, you learn, talk about writing and characters. Playing on a squash court or a tennis court or being in a situation with people, you really get to see what they're made of. You can kind of cut to the chase with someone, whether they call a ball in or out, whether they give you a lead.
Oh,
You know, you're like, oh, is that who you are? You know, like the true
uh-huh.
colors really rise to the surface, and you don't have to waste your time with a lot of people who you're like, yeah, I don't think so. You learn, you just, it's just such a concentrate of what someone's all about.
It's amazing. It's so true. And for anyone who plays, totally gets that. The colors come out real quick. Nothing like a competitive spirit amongst women. Well, I this is super fascinating, but I want to start us at the top. So you have written three novels. As I had mentioned at the top of the show, you have sort of a passion for writing these strong characters. What gives you that passion to write these female characters in such a strong, specific way?
Well, I love that the way you frame the question, because I feel like I begin my novels or my characters begin their stories at a place of self doubt or an inflection point in their life where you could go this way or that way. They're not so sure. Maybe they're more driven by external things than internal strength. And I really do feel like a lot of my characters start from a place of being unsure, uncertain. But over the course of the novel, as you always want transformation and transcendence and somewhat of an arc of your character, I always bring them to a place of like self empowerment and self discovery and not really caring as much about the outside world or the resume type of attributes and really caring more about like what drives them. Also, making sure they heal from whatever wound it was that was like kind of keeping them back. So, some sort of acknowledgement or addressing the internal wound. But I do think that, you know, the way you asked me the question, I'm like, oh, do I do that? And I guess I do, but it's really the reader gets to watch a character come into her own as much as
Yes.
more than these women are starting off having it all figured out. I don't think that's realistic.
And that is something that I can't even begin to explain how much I appreciate. Did you come up with this sort of like arc construct for your characters through life and knowing and self reflection? Or is it sort of the study of women or just something that you were passionate about expressing? I just think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, I could do that now at 42, but I certainly couldn't do that at 38.
Well, Betsy, there's certain tropes in literature, which is always kind of going from a place of not knowing to knowing or weakness to strength. And I think the typical heroine's journey or even a hero's journey, you're traveling to figure things out and hopefully you have some self-discovery and self-understanding. So I think I'm just kind of glomming on to a well-worn trope in literature and even readers kind of expect to be on a
Mhm.
journey with a main character who's going to evolve. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think maybe my special flavor that I bring to it is a little bit more of these contemporary issues around, you know, things that have kind of changed over the generations for women, whether it's reproductive rights, the options that are available to us with regard to unplanned pregnancy or birth control or opportunities in the workplace or confusion around sexual consent. And I think one of the things I do in my books is I bang the generations up against each other. So quite often I have these relationships between mothers and daughters or grandmothers and granddaughters where the younger generation might assume nobody really understands what I'm going through. It's not, you're so old fashioned, you know? And anyway, I like to have the generations relate with each other in an uncomfortable way. And I also like to then show that there are these timeless human situations that we can all relate to. Our circumstances may have been different, but down deep, the human experience hasn't changed that much. So I do that with
It,
granddaughters and grandmothers, but I also do that by stealing some of my plots from ancient literature. And Daughter of a Promise, my most recent book, is actually a retelling of an ancient story of David and Bathsheba. So this issue of consent, an older man and a younger woman, workplace politics, power imbalance, these things have been going on for thousands of years. And yeah, I guess I like to show these women coming into their badassery, but not. I don't think it's unexpected. I think it's kind of why I write. I think I write to figure out the world, and I want my characters to come out with there's not like, oh, everything's going to be great and that there's a red bow up at the end, but I would say it's going from a place of uncertainty and being more influenced by outside opinions and external forces to going to a place where you're really in tune with your own self and your own heart and your own direction.
Absolutely. And in Daughter's Promise, you cover so many current events. I think that's the first book that I've read, and I read quite a bit, although I always wish more, but where COVID is woven into the story. And, you cover, as you were talking, expressing sort of the tension, you did mother, daughter, grandmother influence, you did wealth, privilege versus, working class, as you mentioned, man, woman, you did corporate politics, older man, younger woman. I mean, truly, like, you hit a lot of things, but they were all so relevant and so important. I know your inspiration was sort of a retelling of the old literature, but what was your inspiration for the character Bets and those specific
Mm-hmm.
kind of challenges that she had?
Yeah. Well, so my main character, Bets, whose full
Mm-hmm.
name is Betsabe Ruiz, is the proxy for Bathsheba. And she starts off her life she starts off her adult life post
Yes.
college, June 2019, graduates from a small liberal arts college and lands herself in an investment banking analyst training program. So, a very coveted job on Wall Street,
Mm-hmm.
a job that promises to train her in everything she needs to know in order to be a number cruncher for 2 years and work on a team that gets, big, sexy deals done on Wall Street. Well, in 1987, I graduated from college with an art history major, and that's where I landed. And I don't think I have anything else in common with Bets. My husband is like, "Did you have an affair with your boss?" But no, I always wanted to write about that feeling. I don't
Yeah.
know if you've had this feeling. Probably a lot of people have, though, where that first job, or maybe not your first job, but a job, makes you feel relatively inexperienced, over your head. Can I pull this off? I shouldn't be
Yes.
here. They hired me and this was a mistake. And I am constantly just trying to keep my head above water. So in
My
the,
first job was
yeah,
was
go ahead.
also in New York City. I moved to New York. I put my stuff on my friend's moving truck and had a second interview scheduled, but no job at McCann Erickson, that big ad agency. Got the job, and the first day, my boss told me, excuse my language, but it is a direct quote. He said, "Betsy, I have 40 resumes on my desk, dying to replace you, so don't fuck this up." And I was like, "Okie doke." So yes, constantly trying to prove myself and my worth and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So
Isn't
yes,
there
I
something
absolutely
about,
identify.
there's something iconic about also New York City and like going there, and whether you grew up in the Northeast and you're kind of following the herd of where all your friends are going, or you come from another part of the country, there's just something iconic about the draw of that place. And it's a cliche in the song, "If you can make it there." But I kind of use that romanticism about the city, and the pull of the city is a big part of this novel and a reason Bets wants to go. And obviously, that was a pull I felt 30 some odd years ago. But my motivation also in writing this character, and I write her from the first person, which means she is the narrator of her own story. I am motivated because I mentioned earlier the story of David and Bathsheba when I was studying it and realizing it was all about about a power imbalance in a relationship and kind of a seduction, and many would say a sexual assault, but it has a lot to do with consent. And I was studying this story with some other people in a class during the height of the Me Too movement. And I thought, wow, we've been talking about consent forever. But you could think,
Yes,
we've only really been talking about consent for 5 years. But really, I feel like it's important for young women to know that we have been talking about consent forever, and it's not black or white. It's not like there's 100% consent, and in my opinion,
I agree.
and there's not like I've crossed the box no or I've crossed the box yes. I feel like in studying this and thinking a lot about relationships or experiences that you may get into and not be so sure or regret later or not regret later, your mind, you justify things. There's places of gray. You kind of want to go. Then again, your friends have an opinion of what it is and you could be influenced by them. But somewhere psychologically, there's a reason you want to try something or do something. And I'm not saying it's necessarily a relationship, but I don't really believe that everything you and every decision you make is a yes or no, black or white. And so I really wanted to explore the gray area of consent. And I thought that this story offered a really good opportunity because at the end, if you were to read the book of Samuel, you would know David and Bathsheba, despite having a lot of loss and suffering, some tragedy together, they stay together. And then Bathsheba bears more children with David, one being Solomon, the future king of Israel. So I have a situation that starts off really being defined by this inappropriate sexual coming together, yet there's something there that keeps them together. And I know being married and leaving someone is back in that day came with a whole nother set of implications. So putting my own worldview on an ancient story, I'm taking some liberties, but I was interested in what keeps people together. What needs were they meeting for each other? Why would people of such different ages want to stay together? And I really did explore that relationship. So you talked about it being during COVID. One of the really convenient aspects of COVID is that it gave me a reason why these two people would spend so much time together and have their relationship as like on this incubation, like hotbed of time. And I think
Yes.
we all
Pressure
experienced
cooker.
during COVID. Yeah, pressure cooker. Whoever you were sequestering with, your
Mm-hmm.
pod, you were like really with those people. And so when my
Yes.
David and Bathsheba or David and Bets are together for almost, 6 months or 9 months alone, they become a domestic unit and they fill needs for each other. And it was a way to show an evolving relationship that may have first started off based on physical chemistry or maybe some other things, but it really had deeper meaning and was a little bit more justified and plausible. So not that my book
I
is
also,
about COVID, but it really allowed the
no, no,
plot
no.
to make sense.
No, your book isn't about COVID at all. But it was really just a moment of reflection for me. I was like, wow, I haven't read a book. And it's just interesting because that's so current and it's inspired by something that's so historic. And I think that's a really cool juxtaposition. And it was just really interesting to see how COVID as an experience was written into a character plot. So I just thought it was really cool. And I'm like, wow, this is the first book that I've read where COVID is part of the story. And but that's just me and my pick of books. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting. And I absolutely felt the sort of pressure cooker and it restirred all of the experiences that I had during COVID. And then, to your point, in part of your intention, it makes me reflect to be like, am I living? Like you see this woman kind of make the choices, some in strength and some in weakness. And it just always makes you pause and reflect. So I thought it was a really, really cool perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it is really interesting to, just on the microscope of the relationship to be like, okay, she is this character that really is sort of a coming of age. And what really struck me was, and it was very like forefront in the book, is that it takes life experience, hardship, pivot to really to break our hearts and crack it open and help us grow. Really seems to be where she steps into her strength, which was really amazing to watch despite the hardship, which we'll leave for the readers.
I know. Thank you. With the same group that I studied the story of David and Bathsheba, we studied wisdom literature and what is wisdom and what brings about wisdom. And that was something I was thinking a lot about as I was drafting this. I was also thinking about like, what is love? Is love something that just makes you feel so happy and blissful? And I think what I came to the conclusion and I tried to emphasize in the book is that love really makes this human struggle and our life's journey easier because you're with someone who there's this mutual sense of support and dedication. Love isn't necessarily making every day like a tap dance, but love is really like this deep commitment of support. And so both the question of like, what is wisdom and where does it come from and what is love? And she's really wondering throughout much of the beginning of this novel, throughout much of the novel, does she love this person? And what is love? I've never experienced love, but here I am thrown together with this man. And if I was to describe it, is it love? And I think that's also something as you're starting out as a young adult and getting into relationships, that's a question that resonates, right?
Absolutely. So what are your thoughts on what is wisdom?
I think I'm going to quote my rabbi who helped me, who maybe led her class in the same question, which I like the answer. Wisdom is collecting wisdom, being open to answers and ways of behaving and ways of thinking that are, it's like I'm answering a question with the word, like I'm writing the vocabulary word in for the definition, which I'm not supposed to do. But if love is the act of loving, wisdom is kind of the act of collecting wisdom, but also being quiet and listening and storing wisdom. So there's something about you know it when you know it.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like wisdom comes from experience and the openness to sit with the experience and take what that experience is and how does that,
Yeah.
affect you and move you forward.
Maybe it's also, like you said, to sit with the experience, but not label it because who knows what's
Great
good and
point.
bad, right? So if something happens, it's not necessarily bad. It's just the step your life took, and what are you going to take from it? And yeah, help you
Yes. And
move to the
in all
next
these,
point in your journey.
I recently turned my basement into a home gym, literally all from Amazon, and I could not be more obsessed. I got an elliptical that I actually love, a reformer that I'm obsessed with and is saving my life, and all my decor that makes it not just a home gym, but feel bougie. I mean, we're talking wallpaper accent walls and a chandelier without breaking the bank. Now I have space where me and my 4 kids can all work out together. I love Amazon because I furnish or style my home in a way that feels like such a reflection of me without having to break the bank. If you're like me and get a little bit sad, okay, maybe more than a little bit sad, when there's no package at the door, then you are my people. Also, I think we need help. But until then, visit amazon.com/shop/write your own story, or even better, click the link in the show notes and shop all my favorite finds in fashion, beauty, home decor, organization, and more. From my cart to yours, these are the treasures you don't want to miss. In a lot of these conversations that I have with women, these moments of there are common themes. This podcast is just turning out to be many things, but one of the things that for me is it's like a long-term research project of what it means to write your own story. It's just conversation after conversation, and these common themes keep bubbling up. And this notion of the gray and things aren't just good or bad. And I think in today's climate, with the political landscape and even COVID and people just going through such hardship and people feeling so divided, so much of us have lived through so much where you just want to feel safe. And so you just go around being like, are you good? Or are you bad? Are you safe? Are you not? Where really it's all in the gray. So to your point, wisdom is being able to see the dualities in life and to sit within those experiences and pull from it something, even in a hard one, something that serves you.
Yeah. And because I know a lot of your listeners are female and we want to encourage women to write their own story and be the main character, I would say, aren't we wise? Like, I do think we hold the mantle of wisdom between the sexes. If there's like the logical and the analytical, or there's the more heart driven and the intuitive and the appreciation of wisdom, more of a listening heart. more of a heart that connects between the generations, between our mothers before us and our children. There's something about being like the connecting bond. I think that imbues us with a wisdom. Like we have this life force, we give life. I want to
Yes.
just say we have so much power, and
Mhm.
that imbues us with a certain wisdom.
I agree. And I think, in today's climate and many generations before, what defines what makes us powerful or what makes us worthy, or, is so often the reflection of how we make others feel or how we are in service of others. But really, my hope also in this podcast is that we all remember to stand in our own strength. And that's not at the disservice of anyone else, but it's making sure that you are, to our point, living your as a main character first. And that is, truly how you live your most authentic life and how you are able to serve others in a meaningful way. And,
Yeah.
but truly the intuition and the life-giving force of women is pretty phenomenal. And I
Yeah.
just,
And I don't want to say our power is defined by our fertility and our
nope,
childbearing,
nope.
because yes,
Agreed
that's an
wholeheartedly.
awesome experience, but there are a lot of people who don't have that experience, a lot of women who don't have that experience, and a lot of women who hang their hat entirely on that experience and then come to find there's so much more to life. And like, I thought that was defining me and my identity, and now it's gone. And now who am I? So I want to just say, like, I don't want to fall into that. I don't want you to assume I'm saying our life giving force is our only source of power, but our bodies are built to give life. And I think our same with our souls and our, like, just the core of who we are. We're nurturing, we're
Mm-hmm.
listeners, workers.
Intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you said that. No, I didn't assume that, but I love just really exclamating that point that a woman's value is also not connected to her relationship status, her child, how many children she's had, if she's had children. It's just truly living her authentic self. Everyone
Right.
is born worthy. No, I think that's wonderful. And I definitely want to exclamate that because it's absolutely true. Okay. So you have written, these characters who go through these journeys and really step into their own. And, some of it is inspired by old work, some of it is inspired by your experience. But I can imagine in the process of writing that these women also inspire you. Can you talk a little bit about how these characters have influenced your life?
Yeah, well, I think you can't be an author who focuses on the arc of a life going from a place of not knowing or uncertainty or immaturity, and then and then slowly transforming to a place of knowing without subconsciously wondering how your own life may be an arc, or are you actually fulfilling the arc of why you're here on this planet.
Mm.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's why the universe put a pen in my hand. I had a lot to figure out. I'm not a, well, I just want to say we all carry around our own burdens and our own wounds, and I'm not in a competition to say whose life has been better or worse, but we just all have stuff to figure out. And I do
Yep.
think writing has been the way I've figured it out. And I also think there was a moment during COVID when I saw that I guess, the responsibilities and my need of being a mother that's really close and on top of her kids, that was starting to feel like that's probably not the healthiest thing. My kids are fine, and being hovering is actually going to harm our relationship. My
Mm-hmm.
husband and I have parents that have passed, and whereas we used to be caretakers in that regard, we had more free time. So we really
Mm.
looked at each other at one point and said, my gosh, the world needs people who are willing to take on some big problems. We have energy, we have our health. If we reshuffle the deck a little bit, we'll have some resources that we could put into some of these values and beliefs. And so we sold our home and simplified things and bought this farm in southwestern Wisconsin. And so my big arc of transition, I think, is now trying to address some issues we see in the food system. And
Yes.
you live in Ohio, so this probably isn't as foreign to you, but I raised my kids in a northeastern city and couldn't have been more detached from the food system. Yet
Mm.
I had this strong pull to have more control over what went in my body, and this empathy with so many people who don't have access to good food. So yes, I could
Yes.
have gone to these fancy farm to table restaurants and sought out farmers markets, but that's not really realistic and sustainable for the average person day in and day out. So we also watched this documentary called Kiss the Ground, which many people watched during COVID, about our topsoil in this country and the erosion that's undergoing due to a lot of over-tilling and spraying and industrial farming. I have to say, now that I live in Wisconsin and I'm in farming, I understand all of the issues around changing to a more sustainable process. I'm not trying to say it's so easy. Why doesn't everybody do it? I'm definitely understanding way more about what it is to be a farmer and what it is to be able to invoke change in your agricultural
Yes.
processes. So I don't want to be flippant, like, why isn't everybody doing it? But yeah, my husband's job, he was always consulting to big food companies, and I was always looking for longevity potions and growing my kale and making smoothies. But during COVID, we really saw how the country's access to good food was fragile. Not just with the industrial farms, but our access to any products based on like this fragile supply chain and things kind of breaking down, and that we were dependent on products coming from so far away. So
Yes.
anyway, this endeavor into farming kind of is a way to tackle health problems, topsoil erosion, access to good food, giving young farmers career opportunities. And so it's also a way for me to work with a team. I've been a lonely introvert writer for a long time,
Hmm.
and I used to rely on a busy household with a bustling family. And I guess I'm building a new community and family on this farm with a project built around a mission that a group of us are really excited about. So anyway, that's just a very long-winded way of saying I don't know if this is my last hurrah, my last project, but I was definitely feeling dissatisfied with how I was spending my time. I felt like I had a lot of talents to offer the world, and I wasn't making the most of what I could offer. And I was disappointed in myself. So we decided to really shake it up and do something different.
I love that for a million reasons. One, starting that you guys are sitting in a moment of pivot and start at your values, not just what sounds great or what, it was really like a moment where you could stop and reflect and be like, what do we value? Where can we be of service? What fills our cup collectively? I think that, when people are looking, when they have that pull, I see this so often with women, especially moms who are sort of in the thick of it, that they're starting to come up from air and the kids aren't physically attached to their bodies anymore, and they're starting to get that feeling of like, there is still more in me. There's, more brain space. There's more energy. And like, I don't ever want to sacrifice my role in my family. Maybe they're also in a corporate career, but I have conversations almost daily of women with these passion driven ideas. And that I also teach women how to start and run businesses in 20 hours a week or less, because I want these women to do what they're so excited about. Health is an absolute gift. And if you have the capacity and you have the passion for something, it doesn't have to be, you can do it in any way, shape, or form that you want. So I love that you guys took this giant moment of pivot and started with values and started with something that you were super passionate about, and then have kind of evolved it over time to be like, okay, yes, I wanted, to address the issues about access to healthy food and connect your family closer to healthy food. But then it's bringing in other farmers and giving them the opportunity to farm in that way, which, expands the reach of this effort beyond. Are you guys able to distribute?
Yeah, so one thing that's really cool about our model, and one reason we came to Southwest Wisconsin, is because we had a family friend who's of my children's generation. He was actually grew up with them, went to University of Wisconsin, was an engineer, was a chef, and over a 4th of July picnic 3 years ago mentioned that he wanted to be a farmer and had apprenticed in farms, but saw a real need for the connection between the kitchen and the farmer. I was like, are you kidding me? Did you know we wanted to buy a farm and we couldn't really figure out how to do this and how to go about it? And he said, come out to Madison, where he introduced us to the founder of a fast casual chain of restaurants called Forage Kitchens. And
Okay.
they are like a salad bowl concept with a base that's a grain or a green, but really like with a grain. And then they have a really tasty menu, but you can also build your own salad. So we have Forage as our main customer. They really wanted to be aligned with the local proprietary organic farm. And
I
so
love
we're
that.
able to get our food into onto people's forks within 2 or 3 days of it being harvested out of the ground. We're growing 26 different variety of veg this summer. And depending on what's in season, they are ordering, 10 to 12 different things from us, and we deliver to 7 locations. And so, yeah, you can go to a Forage kitchen, get a bowl for like 12 or $13 and know that that food was picked 2 or 3 days ago by a local farmer living their dream.
Amazing.
We're
And
trying to
I,
grow more year round, but we have challenges with this climate. But we will be
climate. Oh,
putting
yeah.
in some geothermal greenhouses. But this is really our first full growing season. Last year was kind of year point 0.5, and I'd say we're in year 1.5. So yeah,
Which is insane because it sounds like it's so much more than just a farm, like you, which I grew up on a farm, but I grew up on a horse farm. So I am not, I'm not super familiar. I mean, I know all about crop growing and things like that, but like it was more like, but when it is snowing outside, you are still outside. Like, everyone still needs to be fed. Everyone still needs to be brought in. Everyone needs to be cared for, just like all of the things that you are growing. But then to get all the operational components into that as well is if you've got distribution channels and you've got customers and you're meeting food standards. Like, how did you learn how to do all this? Even just the farming alone.
well, I mentioned this young man who's a partner in spirit, and couldn't have done it without him. He's kind of the on-site manager who lives here year round. And then we hired another guy who's just a really experienced veggie or produce farmer. He's like a produce whisperer. He
Yeah,
makes the most
awesome.
beautiful things grow out of. Last year we had the worst drought, and we had beautiful lettuce. And anyway, so we really lucked out. I think one of the things that continually validates this decision and makes it feel right is that people started coming in our path that were like the next person we were supposed to meet, the next
Mm,
person that we were supposed to try to align with or join our team. So there's the founder of Forage who's just completely bought in as our main customer. I won't say there's plenty of operational hurdles we have, like starting to provide organic veg to a customer who hasn't been geared around seasonality
yeah.
as much as they should have. But between those two hires, so between my husband and I and those two first hires, really felt like we had the core of a great team. This year we brought on another guy at like a year-round full-time position who has an amazing wealth of experience. And then the seasonal crew brings so much desire and mission. So I would say my special contribution in terms of leadership and team building and also infrastructure, like managing contractors and approvals and permits and community relations a little bit, getting things built, figuring out wells. I've been taking that on, and that's been a huge learning curve. But I didn't have to learn how to grow and soil science. We brought on people who are
Yeah.
well trained and experts in that field, and thank God, because I don't really think I appreciated I don't think I really appreciated how hard this was, how many people it would take, and how many different ways of knowing that we would need to combine on our team. And I do feel validated, just like the universe wanting this to happen, because yeah, we've had people who have turned out to be not great people we thought were going to be like great contacts and helpers who didn't turn out to be, but our core
Tis life.
group is growing and progressing together, and we're attracting more good people. So
The universe is good like that, isn't it?
yeah, and when you don't have all the talents that everyone around you has, but you appreciate them. And I think one of the things starting a business or starting a farm from scratch, we really wanted to create a culture on this farm. So I think we
Mm.
try really hard to do things that make it feel like you're working as part of a community and not just working an hourly job for a paycheck. And I do think that's what a lot of the folks on our farm, it means a lot to them. So I can organize pizza parties and after work happy hours and special lunches and, be
Yeah.
and I can do that. because I'm qualified after 30 years of being a mom to
Truly, right?
pull off the meals. But there's more than that. So there's just like infusing this constantly with the culture, whereas the people who are doing the real work, they can get tired and burn out, and I can say, hey, time to take a break. Let's like, we want to take this work seriously, but we don't need to take ourselves too seriously. And also, being a regenerative farm isn't just regenerating the land, but it's regenerating the humans who tend the land. So I tried to approach this like I would, a family, and you don't want to see anybody getting tired or getting burnt
I love
out,
that you.
or yeah. So
Yeah, it's super interesting because I was thinking as you were describing the things that you do in terms of like such heavy operational type things. And I'm like, you're a creative writer. How are you leaning in and knowing all these skills for operations? But it seems like
well,
so much of
my
motherhood.
years on investment banking. So we started out on Wall
Mm,
Street. Then I moved to
this is true.
Cincinnati and I worked at Federated Department Stores during the
Nice.
acquisition of Macy's and the whole reorganization during. So I
Ah,
know a little something about retail. And then I went to Boston and I worked at Harvard Business School. I wrote case studies for the retailing professor that I was well set up for post Federated Department Stores. And that kind of inspired the writing life because I was doing that as I had young babies, and I was like, I think I could write and be the kind of
mm,
mom and the dedicate, like my husband's career is just on the road. We couldn't have two, or we didn't
yep.
want to have two highly stressful careers. So my
Mm,
job, I wanted to be more predictable and tied to Boston. So anyway, that kind of lent itself to pursuing the squash ambition I talked about and pursuing writing. But with all that, I've always served on a lot of nonprofit boards, and I've always somehow found my way into being like, I don't know, the treasurer or the chair, because I was talking about I'm always the captain of the team I'm on. And I feel like
yeah.
maybe I'm the captain of the farm. Maybe I'm not like the CEO, but I'm more of the, like, I know when someone needs to sit on the bench for a little and take a
Mm,
water break, and when we have a good team member and when we have a dud. No, I'm not saying anyone on our team's been a dud, but we
I
have
get
had
it. I get it.
some consultants who have been duds. Some people that it's like, let's just cut this now. But anyway, maybe I'd describe it as that. And all those life experiences, whether it's like being part of a construction project before, I've done that before, both in a nonprofit role and also helping build a residence. I know a little bit about how to deal with contractors and talk that talk. And
I think this is the personification, that's probably not the right word, of wisdom, right? I mean, you have collected all of these experiences and don't just take them for experiences and let them be one dimensional. And,
mhm,
you've really taken them with you and folded them into the next thing and into the next thing. And, that's what makes women and people in general so dynamic and
yeah,
able to apply, continue to grow and evolve and
yeah.
truly write your own story is
I
using
would
your
also
collection of
say,
wisdom.
I would also say to your listeners, folks often ask, oh, investment banking, did you go to school for that? Oh, farming, do you have
Hmm.
experience with that? Do you or your husband, were you from Wisconsin, or did you go to school for agriculture? And no, no, no. And maybe I could
Hmm.
feel unqualified, but don't let anyone ever make you feel unqualified, because you can learn so much when you put your mind to it, when you seek out mentors and you listen and you just work hard. You can read, you can watch documentaries, you can take online classes. I mean, I took a class. It was a very high level class that met only once a month, but I've been trying to take classes at the University of Wisconsin and absorb as much as I can in agriculture. Whenever I get a chance, I visit another farm and see how they're set up and how they're doing things. I joined a nationwide network of women working towards improving the environment. And a lot of them are farmers and ranchers. And I talk to them about, like, when you have an employee who asks for this, that, or the other thing, how do you handle it? And so it's not like I came out of some egg or womb knowing stuff. But if
Yeah.
you're an inquisitive, curious person who spends an hour a day reading or figuring stuff out, don't underestimate what you can learn and what you can figure out how to do. I figured out how to be a
I
novelist. That took a little bit longer than becoming a farmer. But none of this stuff I had any like formal training in. So don't let anybody tell you you need some formal training. You can figure it out in this day and age. The technology is there to help you get up to speed really fast.
That is truly how, outside of advertising, that is how I have figured out all of my entrepreneurial ventures. That's how I figure out half of motherhood. I Google it or ask a friend.
There's got to
Truly,
be a YouTube video on just about everything. Like my main
everything.
character, Betsy, she's having a hard time with that summer training program, and she just stays home and watches YouTube videos at night on all these different skills she's supposed to master, whether it's how to discount cash flows or how to project, things in a spreadsheet. She's like, thank God for YouTube.
And look where it got her, to the
Got
head
her.
of the class.
Yeah, the head of the class. That's right.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I think that that is such an important nugget. Honestly, I'm going to reflect on that for the rest of the day. I love that because truly, like, I feel like so often women feel like they have to have it all figured out or they have to have the credentials, or like so many of us at this age are like, I said I was going to be this, but my heart is really pulling me in this other direction, or life has really pivoted me in the other direction. And like to just embrace that and go with it and follow your heart and come up for air and, tap into that intuition that you were talking about and that wisdom that we all sort of inherently have, and take a deep breath and move forward
And
with
you
your
know what?
collective experience.
If you're well organized and
Uh-oh.
well, I don't know. I'm not going to attribute that to any one gender, but I don't know, the role of like keeping things organized and on track.
Mm-hmm.
That's just being able to be a product manager or like manage a process. And that can
Yes,
be used in any kind of discipline or transferred over to different industries, right? So there's
truly.
certain basic human skills. It involves good interpersonal skills, it involves good communication, it involves being humble and being willing to know, like, I don't know everything, I need your help here. But yeah, with that kind of an attitude and being able to just keep things on track, I like literally just go through the critical path schedule of what contractors are supposed to be doing, when are grants due, when are people coming. I schedule a lot of meetings and make sure things just kind of stay on track. And then I have the people, our team is just so amazing and they have so much passion and they're so smart about like the technical stuff around farming and the science of making good compost and the science of bringing in livestock and what they need to eat and how they need to be tended and cared for.
You
I
know,
can't do any of that, but I'm kind of helping soften the edges, I guess.
are you like me and taking at least an hour to plan your meals every week and then to grocery shop on top, only to find out that I throw away half of it because I didn't have it in me to season and chop and prep night after night? It's so embarrassing and I feel awful about it. Are you also like me and worry about if any of the things I buy are healthy enough for me and the family? Well, let me tell you about Hungry Root. Hungry Root is my partner for healthy living. Hungry Root helps me save time, save money. I shop sustainably, and I eat what makes me feel my absolute best. Their mission is to make it easier for more people to eat healthy and feel great every day. Some of my very favorite aspects of Hungry Root are healthy meals in 10 minutes or less. I mean it. No chopping, no seasoning, ever. They do it all for you. Honestly, full stop. This is my very, very favorite thing. Every meal is so easy to put together. Often they have steamer bags for vegetables and all sorts of great microwave options too. They also give you healthy snacks and pantry supplies my kids and I both love. They're whole, trusted ingredients, which makes me feel like a great mom because I actually know that I'm putting good things in the pantry and in the fridge. Personalized recommendations based on your goals. Mine is heart healthy, and it ships to me on my schedule. The best part is also less food waste. No more throwing food out each week, which feels amazing. All you have to do is take their super simple quiz and share your preferences, goals, must-haves, and they'll recommend a plan for you and just fill your fridge with food you love. You could be like me and let them surprise you with meals each week, or you can go in and adjust each week before they actually send it to you. And let me tell you, they love your feedback. This is the one thing I actually do. I'll go in there and I'll tell them to send me more of a certain meal or less of a certain snack because we didn't really care for it. One simple click and your order is adjusted. Hungry Root is so much more than a meal kit. They send full-size groceries, which is so much better better than pre-portioned package you get with your meal kits. Honestly, couldn't be happier. Use your code Write Your Own Story 40 for 40% off your first delivery plus a free gift for life. Use code Write Your Own Story 40 or just click the link in the show notes for 40% off your first delivery plus a free gift for life. 40% off is huge. The free gift for life promotion is a choice of free cookie dough for life, free veggies for life, or free protein for life. For life means the length of your subscription. Honestly, guys, I love Hungry Roots so much. It saves my butt every single week, and I could not recommend it enough. Don't forget, use the code Write Your Own Story 40 or just click the link in the show notes. Well, I think you're doing much more than softening the edges. Let's just go ahead and say that. But yeah, sure, we can stop there. But I think this also just kind of gave me the ding in my head to be, I think about your point of these operational skills can translate across many fields, right? So that also makes me want to just say to women that if you have an interest in something, but you've never done it before, but you have skills that you could be, you don't have to start it yourself, although that's obviously your and my favorite thing to do. But you can take those transferable skills and just hop on in there. Like, don't discredit that, to your point. And like if someone is really interested in farming, but isn't ready to be a farmer, can they be a grant writer in the organic process? There's a million different places where you
There's
can
so
plug in,
many
and it
ways
doesn't
to
have to
get
be.
in. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's just what I love that I don't know if it's women. I don't know if it's my circle. I don't know if it's the universe. I don't know. But I find myself amongst a lot of very curious people. I am a curious cat. Whenever I'm feeling a little defeated, I go learn something and I feel totally in my power again. But to be curious and to not be afraid to follow that curiosity, because I feel like it's somehow connected to our intuition as well.
I would agree
Just a
with
hunch.
you. I would agree with
Yeah.
you. I think we're all creative inside. I hate it when people say, "Oh, I'm not creative." We're all creative. We're
Yeah.
born creative. Humans are of creation and we are creative and we're of love and we're filled with love and we're filled with like in our when we're living our best selves, this desire to kind of share something of ourselves. So you can do it through art or cooking or raising a family or having a relationship, but giving of yourself is, I think, one of the most important things. And so, yeah, whatever makes you like, I don't know, I guess just not to wrap it up, but like to write your own story, to be the main character of your story. I would also challenge people to make it like a big, important story.
Love that.
Because I think one thing, turning 58 and I'm almost 59, having 60 right around the corner. My mother passed when she was 60 and my grandmother passed when she was 57. And they would give anything to have the opportunity to and have a big exclamation point on the end of their life with leaving something behind that you're like, okay, even if you give it your all and I don't know, I think success can be defined in so many ways, but I think we should all challenge ourselves to create something that we're so proud of and that we leave a legacy behind, not because of vanity, but because I think that's just part of the human experience. I think we all strive for that. We all strive to leave something behind, to be understood and to make meaning. And don't let whatever fear or whatever external voice or external forces or voice in your ear is telling you can't do it. I mean, I had those too, but just tell
Yeah,
them to
everyone's
shut up.
got
Just
them.
tell them to
Yeah.
shut up.
Put them in their place.
And
Yes.
do something that's always been like, we have this sense of knowing there's that something that's been nagging at you for a while. Like, try it.
Try it. And I think that that's such a gift to those around you. I no longer am totally afraid of failure. I think and I want my children to see, go for it. Like, if you fail, you are still a worthy, amazing person and you get up and try again or try something else. And I think also, I always say I do want to leave the world a better place, but what makes it feel less daunting is to just make my little sliver of the universe a
That's right.
better than I found it.
That's right. We're
And
not going to cure food insecurity, but we're experimenting on our own little farm here and living the values that we might want to see replicated throughout the world if we can do
yes,
it, and
Yeah. Well, and
So
to your point about all this, the universe keeps sending you all these great people. It's also the ripple effect of what you're putting into the world. You know, it's just a
yeah,
pebble in the pond, which it's much more than a pebble in the pond,
if
but for
all
the
we
sake of the
do
ripple
is
form.
train
Yeah.
4 or 5 people every summer to go out and live this life somewhere else, that would be a huge success.
Yes. And you're already well beyond that. Well, I want to be mindful of your time because I know you have been on meetings all day and I could just talk to you about I like farming and writing and all this. I'm like, and sports. I'm like, oh gosh, we're going to be best friends. But one of the, I always love to wrap up every conversation just around notions of, you know, women and what's important. I feel like we've hit on this so much too, but I'm curious to know what women in your life have inspired you. You've talked about your mom and your grandma, anyone, what women have
Yeah.
inspired you in your life?
Well, I was going to go back to those 2 women. I mean, I didn't really
Mm.
know my grandmother that well, but I was named for her. And then my
That's
mother and I were
beautiful.
incredibly close, but I lost her way too young.
I'm so
So I
sorry.
do a lot of my things in memory or to honor the lives that, hopefully I'll get to live another 50 lives, 50 years. So I like to do things for all 3 of us. And I also am greatly inspired by my children. My
Mm.
daughter is 27, and when she graduated from college, she outfitted a Sprinter van and lived in that van and traveled to like 30 different states and a million national parks. And she has I mean, I know she deals with things, but she exhibited a life of fearlessness. And I do think just even that job in investment banking, I was kind of glomming on to the first thing that came my way, even though it wasn't necessarily the right thing. And I lived with way more like safety. I'm doing this, I'm doing that in my 20s. And I look at her and I'm like, God, where did she get that from? And I think
Yeah.
it goes like sometimes there are people in your life who inspire you, but you realize you're also inspiring them, and it kind of like
Mm-hmm.
there's this mirror going back and forth of being impressionable and then being the one who sets an example. And so I'm just answering this question of the long lineage of women, starting with my grandmother, my mother, myself, and my daughter. There's reasons I do everything when I wake up in the morning to either make them proud or to finish what they could in their own lives.
That is so moving and so beautiful. And like, what a gift to, gosh, you're so not alone because you are in spirit with all 3 of those women, you know, whether they still be Earthside or not, but they are with you with everything. And, you know, I'm sure they are your fuel on the tired days. I think I can
Yeah.
imagine that the universe has them right there with you. And that is, I mean, that's all we ever want is to be in community. And I think that's really, really amazing and beautiful and way to sort of harness, again, similar to your characters, harness the challenge of losing really important women way too young. And I'm so deeply sorry for you for that because it sounds like, you know, it's just not fair. Honestly, loss is as
Oh,
I have lost friends and family. It's just, you know, it's for the birds,
it's
but
really
they're right there
awful,
with
but it's
you.
part of the human experience. And I think it makes
Mm-hmm.
us more loving and caring and understanding.
Mm.
I don't think I really
Yeah.
understood a broken heart or loss until I lost my mom. And then you look
Mm.
around and you see all these people who've lost folks, and you're like, oh my God, I never knew what you went through until I just lost someone of my own. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's it,
Yes.
it makes me who I am.
Yeah. And I truly, I think, you know, they are smiling down watching you do these amazing things.
I hope so.
Um,
I hope they help our lettuce grow.
I know. Can we get some growth around here? Please, mom. It's amazing. Okay. My last question that I always love to ask women is what do you wish women talked about
hmm
more openly?
Well, in my first novel, Eden, there are so many secrets between
Hmm.
generations in one family around having an unplanned pregnancy, and one generation gives a baby up for adoption but keeps it a complete secret. And in another generation, there's this shotgun wedding, but nobody is supposed to know that she's pregnant. And then, it's just like, I really wish, and especially with what's going on in this country, I think we've all run into situations around, I don't know, birth control, rights, and different experiences we've had, whether it's before you're married, after you're married. I had 3 children and then had a very difficult situation where I had to terminate a pregnancy. I just don't
Mm.
think we share those kind of stories. We hold them in and we carry them like it's shameful. It's
Yes.
such a loss and a source of regret, but it's also like important that we start sharing these stories because there's so many assumptions made around our reproductive health. And I think our rights are being slowly taken away because we don't stand up and talk about what happened to us. And like literally, I could have died if I lived
Yes.
in this environment right now. So I've been thinking a lot about writing about that. And I know people have different strong religious beliefs, but I think there's so much culturally that keeps us quiet and embarrassed and ashamed of different situations we've had. And I wish we were at a place where we could share those. I never really talked about this before. I've always been so ashamed and so sad about it. But
I,
anyway,
I,
I wish we could open up as a sisterhood and support each other through these difficult moments and decisions and healthcare crises we've had.
I I could not agree more. And I'm so sorry for what you experienced. And you're right. So many people experience things, whether it be loss or, I had a really hard time getting pregnant. And so I had to do IVF and IUI. And I carried so much shame for that because I couldn't, you feel like you're on this earth, your body is on this earth to reproduce. And I couldn't do it without medical intervention. I would not have my child. I will never complain about having 4 children because I begged the universe for them. And you are here today happy and healthy because you had the access to that healthcare. I so agree that these stories and this honesty, one, absolutely for the rights that are on the line. I'm terrified for my daughter. But for the healing for these women, for you to have to carry that story quietly for so long. And I know you have the support of your family, and you are not alone.
Anyway, I
Truly.
know it's like, I don't like to talk a lot about political issues. I agree with you. I wish, like, I recognize there's so much of a divide, and so I even hesitate to bring this up. But I do think between the hesitation because you never want to talk religion and politics, and also because culturally we've been taught to keep these things to ourselves. It's not polite society doesn't talk about our uterus and our periods and our pains and our losses. But I really wish we did. I think that we wouldn't be in the place we are right now trying to justify ourselves as needing certain medical attention. So
Yeah.
anyway, maybe that was like not the greatest way to end your podcast, but really like, let's be honest with our daughters and our friends about what we've had to go through and the men in our lives, they need to, completely understand what we have to do, heartbreaking things we have to go through.
Absolutely. And I'm honored to end the podcast this way because this is someone talking about it, right? This is it. We're talking about it, and
Yeah.
people are going to be listening and they're going to feel less alone for what they had to go through and maybe just a little bit more brave to share their story as well. And politics or not, this is what women are experiencing right now. And healthcare is tied to politics, but our bodies and our healthcare and what we have access to, policy aside, should be something that we continue to strive for and talk about. So I'm so glad that you said that. And I think it takes a ton of bravery to say it. And I'm really glad that you said it. So listen up, ladies. We got to start talking about it. I love this.
Thanks,
And I
Betsy.
think, this goes back to think about what you've experienced and, similar to your characters, bringing it full circle and your characters have experienced, especially relative to childcare, bearing children, et cetera, et cetera. And here it is coming to fruition in real life and it's on the front line in today's day and age. So I'm so glad that you mentioned it. And I'm so grateful for the strong characters that you write. I think they are really wonderful examples of how women navigate life and come out stronger based on difficult circumstances and slowly learn their way into their own power, as we all need to mindfully do. So I think they are beautiful contributions and that everyone should go read your books because I love them.
Oh, Betsy, you're so kind. And coming full circle, talking to someone from Cincinnati or in Cincinnati today feels especially meant to be. I have so many beautiful memories. That's where I started my marriage, and it kind of where I started in so many ways. And being back in the Midwest now in Wisconsin, I feel like that's a little bit like reharnessing all the friendliness I felt in Cincinnati.
Truly. Are there it's my it's people are so nice here.
Same in Wisconsin. They're very nice.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I love
anyway,
that.
this was just an amazing conversation in a lot of ways. So thank you so much for having me.
You are so, so welcome. And I really appreciate your time. So, where can people go read your books? How can we find them?
So my 3 novels are all very upfront and center on my website, Eden the
Okay.
Nine and Daughter of a Promise. There are links at jeanneblasberg.com. And there's also a link to a newsletter I put out about once a month, mostly about farming these days, to tell you the truth, but farming and
That's
life and
awesome.
writing. And then for folks who want to follow our progress at Flynn Creek Farm, the farm has a website, flynnCreekFarm.com, and also a very active Instagram presence at flynnCreekFarm.com.
Awesome. I
Or
cannot
Flynn
wait
Creek
to check
Farm
those
is the
out.
handle for Instagram.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we'll make sure to put all the links and all the show notes and all the things. So I am just, this has been such a wonderful conversation. My cup is so full. I feel stronger from having this conversation and standing in my own power. And I feel, continuously inspired to put better things into my body. It is incredibly intimidating. Even with, I sit in the privilege of access to, the Whole Foods and the farmers markets, and time is a little bit more challenging, but still, it still is terrifying for what we're putting in our bodies. So I really appreciate all that you're doing, and keep going and have your food make its way to Ohio, please.
Thank you. All right. Be well.
Oh, yes. All right. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Well, that's the end of this episode, but promise me, you won't stop here with whatever it is you're feeling or dreaming about. I hope you leave today feeling empowered to live life just as you see fit. If this podcast was helpful to you, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a review on whatever platform you're listening on. I genuinely just want to help women live the life they dream about. So if this type of content tracks with you, subscribe to this podcast or visit our website, writeyourownsstory.co, to download digital courses or to grab a journal and a mug to just dream in and dream with. It's your life, lady. Do you. And just remember, I'm rooting for you, and you've totally got this.